The Human Torch is denied a bank loan. Uh, I was saving that one because I'm not talking about the Fantastic Four in this episode because I've been doing the Anchorman vocal warm-up intro to start each episode so far, and I wanted to save that one for the first recording I did after the new Fantastic Four movie came out to emphasize that I'm not talking about that one because I don't care about the MCU anymore and you can't make me. Anyway, welcome. I'm Simon, and welcome back to episode 3 of the Simecast. We're still going strong here, and just to remind everybody exactly what this is, I'm doing a first of its kind sport and film discussion podcast, along with introing the show with some other stuff that I just feel like talking about. But I think this is a first of its kind podcast in my very limited research into whatever else could possibly qualify as that. But we're doing 2 film recommendations every episode, so if you want to stick around till the end to see what I recommend for next week's episode, just use the timestamps to your advantage, or that applies also to if there's anything in particular that you would want to hear over the rest of the stuff that I have to say. That's what the timestamps are for, so feel free. You don't have to listen to everything I have to say. I mean, why I don't know why you wouldn't want to listen to everything I say, because I'm just that entertaining and insightful and whatnot. But we're gonna start the actual podcast now. Just wanted to go over the basics again in case some people didn't see that first episode. So last time around I mentioned the whole Stephen Colbert cancellation thing that was happening with CBS and their parent company Paramount about the lawsuit that Trump had filed and the weird timing of that event. Now another show that's owned by Paramount, South Park, they've gone all in and ruthlessly eviscerated Trump in their season 27 premiere, and I'm here for it. I think the old South Park is back in a way that they haven't been in at least a decade, and it's awesome to see. So for those of you who might not be fully plugged into what was going on here, South Park had a bit of a issue with Paramount, and I think they were involved in a lawsuit that I'm vaguely familiar with, but it was more or less over the streaming rights to the show between Paramount Plus and HBO Max, I think. But I believe they just settled and got a renewed deal with Paramount for $1.5 billion for the next 5 seasons of the show. And apparently they're immediately trying to tank it because of what Paramount has been doing, and they're effectively caving to the Trump administration's bullying tactics, because the lawsuit they settled with, they themselves said that there was no merit to it, and now 60 Minutes has a quote-unquote bias monitor appointed by the administration to report directly to the head of CBS. And, that's fun to know that the government is basically having a direct control over what a news outlet is saying, or a specific news program. So Matt Stone and Trey Parker see this, and you can say whatever you want about them, but one thing I don't think anyone in good faith can argue is that they haven't been consistent in their principled stance against censorship and their pro-free speech stance. And it would make sense that something like this would be the tipping point, especially like the timing of this is immaculate. They just signed that huge deal. They basically have nothing to lose. They're already obscenely rich, and they just got even more rich. Or, I'm assuming that the fine print of that contract has some sort of stipulation where they get paid no matter what. So, you know, why wouldn't they just let it rip and tear Trump a new asshole? Essentially, what they did is they're portraying Trump in the same way that they portrayed Saddam Hussein way back in the day. If you're not a South Park aficionado like me, way back early in South Park's run, and when they made the movie, Saddam Hussein was a recurring character, and he was a big part of the movie, or he was a big character in the movie. What they would do with him is they would take real pictures and just crudely they would split off the center of the mouth and just have the head flop up and down to simulate talking, and it just looks hilarious. And the voice that they use, come here, guy, relax, guy. That's my best impression that I can do. But anyway, yeah, in the movie, Saddam Hussein was Satan's gay lover, and now I think basically they're having him reincarnated as Trump. So they're doing the same visual motif, and Trump is now Satan's gay lover, and they're kind of doing a reverse of what they did with Saddam, in the sense that, like, you know, he was always like making sex jokes or things like that. Now Trump is just like, in their portrayal of him, they basically just keep saying over and over that he has a tiny dick, and he's gonna sue anybody who points it out. And yeah, it's juvenile, it's immature, but it also shows how they think Trump is just a totally unserious person, which he is. But in this portrayal, I also wanted to point out, they finally did away with the motif they had back when Trump was in his first presidency. They had Mr. Garrison essentially play his role by putting on a wig that's obviously supposed to be his hair and putting on the fake bad spray tan. That was kind of indicative of a broader trend I noticed with the show, where they, for some reason, the last like 5 or 10 years, just didn't want to directly go after celebrities for some reason, so they would put in a stand-in character. Like, for example, in the episode where they went after Logan Paul and Prime, they created a character called Logan LaDouche that's obviously supposed to be Logan Paul, and I don't know, that something about that just rubbed me the wrong way. Like, the commentary and satire are still sharp, but it seems like they were afraid of stepping on the wrong person's toes or something, which is not like Trey Parker and Matt Stone historically. But I'm glad they dropped that motif and went right for the jugular here, because it kind of signifies that they're recognizing the need for this kind of thing and the comedy value in it, and I'm appreciative of that decision. Also, Trump in the Saddam Hussein style is just perfect, because Trump's one of the most photographed people in history, so they have a lot of good pictures to choose from for the expressions. It's pretty good. But even beyond Trump, there's a point later in the episode where they directly name drop Paramount as a, like, almost fourth wall break, where they're kind of acknowledging how much they're walking on eggshells just by doing this, and they say, like, oh look, you know who owns this show? Paramount. You guys have got to stop being stupid. Do you want to end up like Colbert? I honestly don't know how Paramount allowed them to air this, but I'm glad they did, and maybe somebody in the network is still recognizing the insanity of what's happening there. As to the content of the actual episode, the way that they decided to approach all of this is pretty clever, in my opinion, and there's some additional stuff that they threw in there that's pretty funny, like Cartman recognizing the trend that wokeness is dying almost, and him not knowing what to do with himself anymore, not feeling special because he was the anti-woke character in universe, and him basically deciding I'm gonna kill myself, so puts puts the that hose in with all the fumes that are supposed to be coming out of the car in Butter's house, and they reveal that it's an electric car, so he's just sitting there waiting for nothing. Him and Butters eventually end up in the car. That's a good setup and payoff. The fact that he said, like, now that wokeness is dead, I think I'm just gonna kill myself. And you, Butters. That caught me off guard a little bit, but it is in character still. But also with that whole plot line, the very end of the episode is Cartman and Butters just sitting there basically waiting to die, and the last lines you hear are like, "Well, I can feel sweet death coming. I love you, man." I love you too, Cartman. I think it's pretty clear. Matt and Trey, they've always been about kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudging the audience, and that's pretty clearly an admission that they know what they're doing could very well lead to the cancellation of the show. Like, that was them saying, yeah, this could be the last episode, and we're going out strong if this is the case, but no cancellation as of yet. I specifically got Paramount Plus just so I could watch these episodes when they air before it possibly gets taken off the air, because I think this might end up being like a landmark moment in backlash against the Trump administration, at least in popular culture. As long as the show is allowed to keep airing, I hope that they go harder. I hope that things keep escalating from here. I want them to leave stuff in that's like borderline defamation. I want them to go as hard as possible. Just keep poking the bear. Like, I'm of the opinion that if you hate somebody for a morally justified reason, it's not possible to be too much of a hater. Like, I want to see blood, metaphorically. And yeah, it looks like the next episode is gonna be airing on the first Wednesday of August, and it seems like they're gonna be touching on the ICE raids that have been happening, the illegal kidnappings, if you will, because a lot of them don't get due process. We don't live in a fascist country, everybody. Don't worry, it's fine. I really admire Matt Stone and Trey Parker. They've said a lot of stuff in the past that I really don't agree with, but I'm not the type of person who holds that against somebody, or, thinks that just because they've said stuff that I don't like, that means they're bad forever, because they have recognized that they have really fucked up on things like climate change, for example. They even made an episode basically acknowledging through the man bear pig character that climate change is real, and they were like, oh, we should have listened to Al Gore, all that stuff. But anyway, the point is that it's good to see that there's still, good satire, and that satire isn't completely dead, even though it seems like it is at times. Because, oh, one more thing I wanted to mention. The way they portrayed 60 Minutes in the show was just perfect. The ticking time bomb intro that they brought in, like, I think when it came back in from a commercial break, it showed their version of the classic 60 Minutes ticking intro, but the stopwatch had like bomb wires attached to it, and the voiceover just said, like, this is 60 Minutes. Oh god, oh shit. I think that's hilarious. Anyway, let's get into the sports section. The first thing I have to say is, if I told you that there was a rookie who hit 4 home runs in a game, would you believe that it was this guy? So yeah, Nick Kurtz, the rookie first baseman for the I almost said Oakland A's, but now they're just the Athletics, thanks to John Fisher and his really terrible manipulative ownership, holding out on the team until they moved away from Oakland and immediately signing a bunch of free agents, which he never did. Yeah, just a great guy. That guy John Fisher is. Anyway, I'm gonna move off of that. I'm getting sidetracked. Nick Kurtz hit 4 home runs in a game and damn near hit five, because one of the doubles that he hit, or he had one double, and it went high off the left center field wall in Houston, which is like 370 feet away and 16 feet high. It was just mere feet away from being the first 5 home run game in MLB history, and it was done by a rookie, which is just insane to think about. Like, I liked Nick Kurtz when I was looking at his tape prior to last year's draft. I really liked his swing, and it seems like I was right to uh, view it that way, because he's come on like he's shot out of the gate like a bat out of hell in his professional career, because he just got drafted last year and he's already in the big leagues and hitting over 300 with 23 home runs since May. That's just nuts. That never happens, or at least it doesn't happen very often, but it seems like now higher draft picks are getting to the show faster, which, we'll see how that ends up working out in the long run, big picture. But I like that the A's had confidence in this guy and that it's paying off, because he might have just stole the Rookie of the Year award from his teammate Jacob Wilson, who also had a crazy hot start to the season, and I think he's still uh second in the league in batting average. But it's hard to argue with what Nick Kurtz is doing. And by the way, I gotta be really careful when I say the name Nick Kurtz. Like, I gotta not hesitate when I am in the middle of that sentence, or not stumble over my words. I could say something that would get me banned off YouTube by complete accident.
All right, I'd like to solve the puzzle. Nick
Kurtz. But yeah, anyways, Nick Kurtz, the game he had in Houston, 6 for 6 with 4 home runs, and I think it's a MLB record 19 total bases in one game. Like, it's right up there with the best single game performances in history. Like, it's got to be top 10 at least. But yeah, I'm excited to see what this guy can do throughout his career, because we haven't seen very many rookie first basemen come on the scene like this. Last I can think of is Pete Alonso, and before that, maybe Albert Pujols. Good company to be around, but his swing just built to drive the ball to all fields, and he hit 3 opposite field home runs in that game, and along with the deep fly ball off the wall that he hit to left center. Just really pretty swing. And the fourth homer, or the other one that wasn't to the opposite field, was just an absolute missile into the right field upper deck in Houston. Like, this guy's fun to watch, and I want to see more of him. Sticking with baseball, the Tigers seem to be out of the slump that they were in. They lost 11 of 12 games, and now they've won 4 in a row, including just having swept the Diamondbacks. And going into the trade deadline, that's a big boost for the team. And just today, they had their newly acquired starting pitcher, Chris Paddock, who they got from the Twins, make his debut, and he looked really strong. 6 innings, only 3 hits, no walks, really good stuff, and hopefully he can be the new Doug Fister, if anybody was around during that time to remember how clutch he was after they got him from the Mariners at the trade deadline. When was that? Back in like 2011, 2012 maybe? maybe it wasn't that long ago, but either way, uh, that guy's always stuck with me as he was like the first trade deadline acquisition that I can remember the Tigers making and really working out well. And just before I started recording, they also made another trade to get this guy, Rafael Montero from the Braves, a bullpen arm. And I'm not very familiar with this guy, but from what I'm looking at on his baseball savant page, he has electric stuff, really high chase rate, but he's in the second percentile in walk percentage, so he's pretty wild. Can't find the strike zone sometimes, and he has a 5.4 ERA this year. I think this is more just bullpen depth, just giving them another guy that they could possibly go to. Uh, they'll probably make another move before the deadline's over. I would be very surprised if they don't. Oh yeah, and Riley Green is now newly mustachioed, and maybe that's something that helped turn things around for the team. I think not Green, Torkelson is trying to grow one out too, but just from the early stages, as someone who also has a mustache, I can tell Torks isn't gonna be quite up to snuff with Greens. But no one can touch Jake Rogers in the mustache department. Pure walrus goodness. Speaking of the trade deadline, not too many major moves as of yet, so I guess they're saving it all for the actual deadline shit stravaganza that's gonna go on. But I think the biggest one so far is Josh Naylor going to the Mariners, providing another power bat for them, and the Mariners offense is looking kind of scary right now. J-Rod, Cal Raleigh, he's demolishing everything in sight. Randy Arozarena, a proven clutch moment, uh, big bat to have in the lineup for a potential postseason run. He's proven that he's clutch, and you can't really deny it. And then Josh Naylor being added into the mix gives them another power bat that can be a mainstay at first base, which was that was the spot they probably needed to plug up, and they did it. I also just saw last night that apparently Josh Naylor is the first player in Mariners history to have 4 stolen bases in the first 4 games with the team. Not exactly the guy I would have expected to do that, but that's why we love baseball. There's always going to be weird stats like that. And one more thing, transitioning away from baseball, I wanted to talk about Luka Doncic. Looks like he's turning himself back into a physical monster. Luka obviously infamously traded from the Dallas Mavericks to the Los Angeles Lakers last season, and the reasoning being that Nico Harrison and the Mavericks higher ups didn't think that he was taking his conditioning seriously, and they thought that he might be a long term liability both on offense and just long term in terms of the minutes, the quality minutes that he could play. And they have a point there because he was pretty clearly heavier than he was when he initially came into the league, like significantly so. And now it looks like he's become Ozempic Doncic. I say that half joking because part of me thinks, like, if you're somebody who's already crazy rich and you're an athlete who could stand to lose a few pounds, why wouldn't you just get liposuction or something to just take all the fat off at once and then work your way back up into conditioning from there, because you got the muscle that builds up from lugging around an extra 20, 30 pounds or whatever he was. But yeah, my takeaway is Luka, he's turning himself back into a physical freak that he was when he entered the league. Like, I can't remember the last time I saw Luka Doncic dunk, and maybe he's taking over as the number one option, like, definitively for the Lakers, because LeBron's 41 years old now. I think he's gonna be 42 at some point next year. so clearly he can't just be a one-man carry job anymore. He might even just retire after next season, but anyway, the point is, he might be a dark horse MVP candidate, so watch out for that. And with that out of the way, let's talk about some films. So, my recent recommendation from last episode was Eddington, directed by Ari Aster and starring Joaquin Phoenix. I very much enjoyed Ari Aster's last three movies, Hereditary, Midsummer, and Beau is Afraid. Beau is Afraid is a particularly interesting one to me because I almost think it's just weird for the sake of being weird, but I liked it still. It's one of those movies that perfectly fits the famous Homer Simpson "It's brilliant. I have no idea what's going on" quote. Like, that's me. For whatever reason, I don't usually like movies that are just like almost incomprehensible or like just weird for the sake of being weird. Something about Beau is Afraid I vibe with. I like it. But the long and short of this Eddington movie is that Joaquin Phoenix plays a sheriff of a small town in New Mexico called Eddington. Uh, you see, that's the title of the movie. It's the town that he's the sheriff of. But he basically, this is set during the COVID lockdown in 2020, and Joaquin Phoenix's character kind of defies a mask mandate, and from there he decides to run for mayor, and that's where the inciting incident comes from, and from there it just kind of spirals into a broader picture that Ari Aster is clearly trying to paint about American society, and that tipping point that the COVID lockdown and the Black Lives Matter protests kind of started and triggered. Almost like, we've been trapped in this cycle of what's been happening since then. I'm still trying to kind of figure out what I actually definitively think about this movie. I know I enjoyed it. It's very interesting to say the least, but there are some kind of weird things that I take issue with, and I'll get into that. And this is a spoiler discussion, so if you haven't seen this movie yet and you don't want to be spoiled for it, don't watch anymore. Skip to the end of this discussion. Use that timestamp right there that I was talking about earlier. So some people view this movie kind of poking at both sides of the aisle here, and also giving you reasons to sympathize with Joaquin Phoenix's character, even though he ends up doing some question more than questionable things by the midpoint of the movie and beyond even. But the point is, some people view this as like an irresponsible movie for not not necessarily catering to one ideology or the other, or not painting a full picture of the circumstances that led to the pandemic and the shutdown or the protests or what have you. I've never really been in that boat. I mean, I'm definitely a progressive, but I don't necessarily just want to have films that touch on social issues just regurgitate my ideology back at me, because I always want to hear different perspectives as long as they're reasonable. Like, obviously some stuff's beyond the pale. The main point is, I don't think it was ever Ari Aster's goal to endorse any one ideology or present himself as an enlightened centrist of sorts. I think what he was doing here was more just kind of holding up a mirror to some of the stuff that has like now become just part of everyday life, and just present characters that I think anybody could see somebody they know or themselves in. Like, to one degree or another, we know somebody who's like somebody in this movie. That being said, I would say this movie's biggest issue is its tone and pacing, because it definitely switches gears a lot and basically just is like, okay, like now we're satirizing political campaigns, or just showing uh, a small town campaign and what that kind of looks like, and the kind of absurdist nature of it by default. And then it switches to, oh, now we're seeing uh, a right wing crazed maniac. Oh, now we're talking about weird cults that people who have experienced trauma end up getting suckered into. Or now we're doing the Antifa terrorist attack at the end of the movie. It's just a really weird movie to try and like boil down like a basic plot summary of. Outside of the tone, one other thing that I kind of had an issue with is I don't necessarily know if Joaquin Phoenix was the best choice to play this character. He nails certain parts of the role, and in certain moments, like when you're supposed to believe that he's contracted COVID, he brings out the wheezing and coughing and weak voice that, you would associate with something like that, especially when it was still 2020 and there was a lot more paranoia around just getting COVID, because we didn't fully understand the long-term effects of the disease yet. I think he did a really good job in that front, but I don't really necessarily buy him as this gruff or this conservative-minded sheriff character. That I think it could have possibly benefited from somebody who's a little bit grittier to play that role, like maybe a Josh Brolin, just off the top of my head. But I will say, even for all of the weird tonal problems that I think this movie has, pretty much each section has at least one really standout sequence that's really well filmed. Like, that's one thing that I can't take away from this movie, is that it definitely has a clear vision of how it wants the story to be told, and it's really professionally well made. One thing I also really appreciated about it is the way that it portrays Joaquin Phoenix's his character Joe Cross and his relationship with his wife, played by Emma Stone, who I didn't know was in this movie, but that was a nice surprise. It really gives you a sense of, like, they're holding on by a thread, and she's obviously in some sort of mourning because of some trauma she's faced, and the way that her family has responded to it. It really paints a sad picture of a coping mechanism that people who experience extreme trauma often end up doing, and going into like weird ideologies. Basically, she ends up being in a cult with Austin Butler's character, and by the end of the movie we see that she's been impregnated with his baby. And I kind of sound insane just trying to describe what this movie shows, but I promise you it flows together somewhat well. But yeah, this definitely, even though it is taking place in 2020, I think it is definitely a contemporary movie based on how it ends, which is to say there's a character that we saw throughout the film who is basically, what he does most of the movie is he gets involved in the Black Lives Matter protests to keep talking to this girl that he has a crush on, essentially. And then by the end of the movie, when there's a big shootout between Joe Cross and the Antifa people, effectively ends up taking out one of the shooters and saving Joe Cross. And we see afterwards he becomes something of a MAGA influencer a la Kyle Rittenhouse. It strikes me as something like, I wouldn't be surprised if there were two different endings that were filmed for this movie, because it kind of comes out of nowhere that that's something he would do, but it also kind of makes sense since it seems like he was more or less doing the Black Lives Matter stuff to get to a girl. So that might kind of transition into, him becoming a right-wing grifter, because he's an opportunist of sorts. Tonally, I wouldn't be surprised if they had another ending shot based on something like who won the presidential election, or where the culture was shifting towards, to the right or the left, based on when this movie was being shot. I think this movie's ending is kind of a grim reminder of where the youth has gone, or where they ended up going, because Trump won the young vote by a good margin in this 2024 election, and it's something of like an anomaly that something like that managed to happen, because young people are almost always on the left side of the aisle in terms of the masses. But like, there's something happening with online culture, and the right just seems to have a better grasp on how to like effectively pull people in their direction based on online propaganda and, bro podcasting or what have you. And this kind of thing just really fascinates me, because I'm someone who, like, I'll hear people out, but I always have my personal core beliefs, and those aren't going to shift overnight just because some random podcaster I listen to said something. And the end of the movie also shows the big tech company that was being developed in, or what had a base that was being developed in the town of Eddington. It shows that business, kind of thriving. We don't see the rest of the town after that happens, which I think was a very much an intentional choice, because Memphis, Tennessee is a good example. They built a AI supercomputer there, and the environmental effects are very, very bad. Just look it up if you want to be disturbed, or lose all faith in humanity. But these are all just my interpretations, by the way, and I'm gonna be curious to see how this turns out, because just trying to explain this it's a bit of it's an endeavor, to say the least. Like, you basically can't talk about this movie without interjecting some kind of bit about your personal ideology into it, because this is in I think this is very much a intentionally provocative movie. It's, like I said, I don't think Ari Aster is trying to do the whole enlightened centrism thing. I think it's just kind of allowing you to see the contemporary politics of the time boiled down into a digestible. I've seen this movie compared to a lot of other stuff. One thing that I keep seeing people bring up is the film Nashville, which I'm not familiar with, but I have had it on my watch list for a while, and this has me curious about what the contents of that movie are, because that was made in like 1975, basically right after Watergate. So I'd be interested to see, like, kind of compare and contrast what the comparison actually is. But yeah, I definitely like this movie. And I at least admire what it was going for, but this definitely seems like something that would benefit from a rewatch, when you know what the film, or where the film ultimately ends up going. Kind of, maybe some stuff earlier on would be sort of foreshadowing that, but that's I'll just have to see in the future if I ever revisit this. Oh yeah, I wanted to say as well, Pedro Pascal is in this, and you know, we haven't seen much of him lately, have we? You know, he should just be in more stuff. Like, what was he only in 2 movies that were in theaters this weekend? Like, that's nothing for a guy of his abilities. Like, we should just have him be literally every character in every movie. The Naked Gun, starring Pedro Pascal, Pedro Pascal, Pedro Pascal, Pedro Pascal, and Pedro Pascal. I'm not ragging on the guy. I like him as an actor. Even if he is kind of the new Samuel L. Jackson in the fact that he's in everything. One of the standout moments of this movie is the part where, as someone in my theater said, he's crashing out when Joaquin Phoenix takes out his mayoral opponent, played by Pedro Pascal. He assassinates him and his son and attempts to blame it on BLM protesters, or Antifa assassins, I guess would be a more accurate term. Definitely, like, cold and distant in the way that that was presented, and that was the right decision. That was definitely giving off No Country for Old Men energy. Not just because of the setting, but the tone as well. And that's something else that people are inevitably going to compare this to. A movie that has a bit of a nihilistic tone, set in the desert, featuring a good amount of murder or assassinations, or just gun violence in general. It's a very interesting movie, and it kind of wears its inspirations on its sleeve. But yeah, definitely interesting. I'll have to watch it again at some point just to kind of get a better sense of how it ages, especially because, you know, being so of the times, it'll be interesting to see how this movie ages, you know, if it does, if it is in fact able to age, if, you know, the world doesn't end like some people think that it is. 7 out of 10 for now. Definitely subject to change in the future, but I'm going with a 7 for now. Now for a little change of pace with this next movie, A Mile in His Shoes. Spoiler talk for A Mile in His Shoes. If anybody watched this other than me, which I kinda doubt. But I've had this on the watch list for a while for a very specific reason, and I'm not gonna recommend things like this very much. Just this is a this is a special case here. Uh, I learned about this movie first by watching this video from the YouTube channel Baseball's Not Dead, a video called I Watched Every Baseball Movie and Ranked Them by How Well the Actors Played Baseball, which is, you know, if that sounds interesting to you, I'd suggest checking that one out. It's an interesting watch, but this movie came in dead last, and just by watching the video, I got a sense of what I was getting into in terms of that. And yeah, the baseball sequences in this movie are really poorly filmed. But the thing that pushed it over the top and made me think, okay, I have to see this movie at some point, is the fact that one of the main focuses of the film is around an autistic pitcher who, you know, basically jumps on the scene, and because it's one of those autism is a superpower movies, he becomes like the greatest pitcher ever, or what they can do based on that basic premise. But yeah, for those of you who don't know, I'm on the autism spectrum, and I was a pitcher when I played baseball. So I think at one point in the video, uh this ranking baseball movies by how well the actors played baseball thing, that video, he says something along the lines of like he can only throw 100 miles an hour because he's autistic. That's the reason that the movie gives. And I mean, it more or less does, because like he's a farm boy who just throws apples into a crate all the time, and like apparently that translates to being able to throw a baseball 100 miles an hour. But yeah, more or less I was going into this with the expectation that it might be so bad it's good, or something that like I would find personally highly offensive with the autism angle of it. And I gotta say, it's disappointing on that front. I will. This is definitely not a so bad it's good movie. It's just a standard, boring, low budget sports movie. I took legit notes for this one, just so everybody knows. Like, this is definitely my most detailed experience watching something for this podcast so far. The first of which is that it opens with the cheesiest country song you've ever heard, so that you know exactly what kind of movie you're getting yourself into. Something like, I believe in life, love, and true pursuit of happiness, over a bunch of farm work B-roll and field manicuring, essentially. Which, by the way, in that opening montage, there's two completely different baseball fields that like they keep cutting in between. Like, one of the fields looks pretty rough, like not very suitable for play, and then the other field is like a completely professionally manicured ballpark that's like probably a pro stadium. Like, maybe they didn't get enough footage to fill out the montage, so they just went to whatever footage they could find of like professional manicure grounds crew people working on a field, and just decided, whatever, who's gonna notice? I noticed. Oh yeah, and Dean Cain plays the manager of this independent league team called the River Rats, and I just talked about Superman last week. I forgot to mention, or maybe I didn't forget to mention, I just thought it wasn't worth mentioning, that Dean Cain tried to, get his name back in the spotlight by saying that this new Superman is woke because he played Superman on that Lois and Clark show in the 1990s, I think, as opposed to the 1890s. So this new Superman's woke, huh? Cut to a supercut of Dean Cain's Superman being just as woke, if not more so, than this new one.
Superman, Emily Stevens with Immigration and Naturalization. We just need a quick look at your green card.
Green card.
You are an alien, are you not?
Fucking idiot, can't even grift right. But yeah, the first real scene of the movie is Dean Cain's manager character. I think his name was Murphy. He is sent on a scouting road trip by the owner of the team to recruit a new pitching prospect, and on his way there he breaks down right in front of this farm that just so happens to have this once in a generation autistic savant pitcher that's never picked up a baseball before. He's only thrown apples, and he decides, hey, will you come try out for our team, even though you've literally never played baseball and I just saw you throwing apples, and decided that guy's a pitcher for some reason. And by the way, it's like really poorly communicated as to whether or not the autistic character, his name is Mickey, as to whether or not he knew anything about baseball prior to this incident with him asking to come with him for a tryout. But anyway, the point is, because afterwards the dad, who's like, they have a baseball game on the TV, and Mickey is watching really intently, so it's sort of implied there that he would really closely watch baseball all the time, and maybe that's why he was throwing all those apples, because he had never played baseball before, so he did the next best thing that he could. No, that would make too much sense, because then once he's actually at the tryout, he doesn't know jack or shit about baseball. There's just a lot in this movie like that that's just so terribly communicated. And by the way, I mentioned his dad. I'm pretty sure they cast him initially to be like an abusive husband and dad, but maybe they ultimately decided that that was too serious of a subject matter to get into. But, like, yeah, he was giving off hardcore wife beater energy. That guy wakes up in the morning and says, "Don't give me my coffee yet, I haven't beat my wife." It's the most important part of his morning routine. He can't function without mercilessly beating his wife every morning. It's one of the most out of pocket things I've ever said. But yeah, more evidence to that theory of mine that he was initially cast to be an abusive father and or husband is there's a few flashback sequences when Mickey is on the mound to some time in the past where he was hiding under the table, and what we're shown in the shot is his dad like angrily pacing back and forth. From Mickey's perspective under the table, we can see that he's clearly pacing back and forth, like upset about something. But the voiceover of the dad character is actually like encouraging, talking about bringing his pig to a fair or something to try and win a ribbon, some kind of pig breeder competition or something. The voiceover and the visual just doesn't match at all. What? Could you not have gotten another shot of that? Like, what the fuck? Then, as to the tryout, when Mickey initially gets there, when he's trying to pitch for the first time, he can throw really hard, but you need a secondary pitch outside of the fastball to keep hitters off balance. So what does the coach tell him to throw? A knuckleball. Yeah, let's try and get this kid who's never pitched in his life to throw a knuckleball. Absolutely bonkers advice. I could never even come close to throwing a knuckleball when I was pitching, and I was pitching basically my entire childhood up through my high school years. Believe me, I tried. But yeah, I think you get the idea that at this point this movie is just low budget slop, and I'm just more or less gonna go through different points that I noted down in my notes as I was watching, because it's not really worth it for me to try to give a detailed analysis bit by bit video essay style. Like, is your life really gonna be improved by a concise, well put together resummarization of A Mile in His Shoes? No. No, it's not. The really big continuity error that was detailed in the video that I was talking about earlier once I started this discussion is that during Mickey's first appearance, the rival douche character is another pitcher on the team. The coach goes out to the mound to talk to him, and right before he does, we're shown the scoreboard, and it says that it's 4-1 in the 9th inning. So naturally, when he gets out to the mound, the pitcher says something along the lines of, "Besides, I'm pitching a shutout here. 4-1. Shutout. No, the fuck you're not throwing a shutout." And then when Mickey comes in, he gives up a home run, and as the ball is going over the fence, we see the scoreboard changing the score to 2-0 in the 8th inning. So we've somehow gone from 4-1 in the 9th to 2-0 in the 8th. And then after he gets another out, it flashes forward, and the score is now 4-3 in the 9th inning. So I have no idea how how those shots got so wildly out of order, but I think, as the Baseball's Not Dead guy said in his video, that can't be chalked up to anything more than they just didn't give a shit. But yeah, some other things that I noted down about the baseball action, or something to do with the actual baseball sequences, is at one point Mickey throws a pitch so hard that it apparently shatters a bat on contact, like not on a jam job or something that would actually make sense. No, he just throws a ball so hard that it hits the barrel of a bat and just shatters it. Something that would literally never happen, something that's not physically possible, or like you'd have to throw like 500 miles an hour to do that or some shit. And a few sequences where they show Mickey pitching, there's like the most obvious CGI baseball ever. The pitch path, when it's shown coming out of his hand, it's just absolutely absurd. Like, it dips almost straight down and then kind of rises back up, back into the strike zone at one point. And there's also a shot that's the most obvious sped up footage of all time. Like, they had somebody throw the ball and it ended up being like 30 miles an hour or some bullshit. So they had to speed the footage up to make it look like it was actually thrown hard. And the result is just, like I said, no, anyone over the age of 5 would recognize that that's sped up footage. Oh yeah, another continuity error I noticed is that there's a point where Mickey goes missing, and the owner of the team says to the coach, if you don't find him, you'll find yourself back in A-ball. And they had already said that they were an independent league team. A-ball is above independent league ball. A-ball is actually affiliated with major league rosters. Independent league is independent. So, what the fuck? This guy doesn't even know what league he's operating in. Oh, and by the way, there's also Christian messaging that's few and far between. Sorry if that seems out of place and tacked on, but, you know, it also does feel that way in the movie. That goes to another thing that I was hoping for this movie to be more so bad it's good. Like, I wanted the Christian messaging to be completely fucking hammering you over the head with it. You know, something like God's Not Dead, where the whole purpose of the film is to be Christian propaganda. And I say that as someone who, like, I'm not gonna judge actual Christians, you know, the people who don't use it as an excuse to be authoritarians, you know, people who actually take the right messages that I liked about the Bible when I was a Christian and that I still admire today, even though I'm not religious. But, like, this just strikes me as something that you would be forced to watch in Bible school or something. You know, Dean Cain's character has a bit of a religious falling out, he says, but it's not really elaborated on outside of, like, he mentions that he had a son who died of a quote-unquote very rare blood disorder. It's really, really vague there. And yeah, I can really tell that he cared a lot about his 10-year-old son who died. I can tell so much that they don't even give the son a name. There's not a proper arc for him to have that come to Jesus moment. He just kind of experiences life looking after Mickey a little bit, and all of a sudden he's back on the God train. if I was making this movie, I would include something where it's like, at least have him cry or get choked up a little bit, reminiscing about his son or something. But no, it just kind of comes out of nowhere and he's religious again. And right before the championship game, the whole team kneels in prayer, even though there was absolutely no setup for that whatsoever. They just all say like, oh, by the way, now God's good and we're gonna win because God. And everybody kneel while Mickey says a prayer and everyone just does it. The same thing. You have to plant the seeds for something like that. Have there be some kind of conversation about religion in some way before you do that. Let people know which characters are religious and which aren't, or which are on the fence. But no, that would be too difficult. That would take effort. And why would we put in effort into a movie where you can somehow go from being up 4-1 in the ninth to going to 2-0 in the eighth? And one more thing I'll talk about as to the story of this movie. There's a point where the rival douche character sets up Mickey to get beat up at a party. It's just the most obvious setup as to how they're gonna find out who beat him up. He hired, I guess, people from another team in the league to do it for him, and they wore masks over their head. And one guy, it like shows a close-up of his knuckles as he's about to punch Mickey in the face, and it says home on his knuckles. And you see later, when that guy comes up in the championship game, they make him take his gloves off because of something else that was set up earlier in the movie that I'm not even gonna bother trying to explain because I don't want to spend more time on this than necessary. But anyway, he takes his gloves off and you see his knuckles that say home run tattooed across them. And he obviously, this upsets Mickey, and he then proceeds to strike the guy out. But the setup for that guy coming into the game, he comes in as a pinch hitter, but the PA announcer says that he hit 53 home runs in the regular season. So yeah, that guy's coming off the bench with 2 outs in the last inning of the championship game. Yeah, makes perfect sense. I believe this movie has made me go completely insane. I'm a monkey. Also, if he had 53 home runs in an independent league season, he would have been scouted out and taken out of that league and brought into an actual MLB farm system a long time ago. But yeah, that setup with Mickey not being able to communicate what happened to him when he was beaten up, like he just keeps saying something like home, lights out, to kind of imply that he can't properly communicate because he's autistic. But his level of verbal communication is just so all over the place. Like, he's very selectively nonverbal whenever the plot needs him to be. I would almost prefer, like I said, this movie, like, I wanted it to be so bad it's good. Then I would have at least been entertained. I wanted the baseball sequences to be absolutely incomprehensible the entire time. I wanted the autism angle to be more offensive than it was. It's not a good portrayal of autism. Like, it leans into the autism is a superpower thing, the Rain Man stereotype, the thing like, oh, all autistic people are good at math and stuff like that. But it's not the level that I was expecting it to be. And the Christian messaging is another part of that. Like, I wanted this movie to be on the level of, like, God cures his autism or some shit. Then I would have been entertained. I would have had a lot to talk about, possibly a dedicated video to this. But no, this is just the most bland, boring low-budget movie you could possibly imagine. Like, it's just milquetoast nothing that I don't even know how anyone would actually enjoy. Really boring camera work, and also I made a note that whenever they were driving in this movie, whenever there was a dialogue scene happening in a car, holy fuck, the lighting is so bad. It's so overexposed. And for those of you who don't know what overexposed means, that's essentially exposure refers to the brightness of the lighting. So if something is underexposed, that means the lighting is too dark. And if it's overexposed, that means the lighting is too bright. And yeah, the car scenes are just lit so much brighter than the rest of the movie, or the colors are so much more washed out. It's really weird, but it was consistent. Whenever there was a car scene, whenever they were talking in a car, the lighting was just terrible and stood out like noticeably from the rest of the movie. I almost want to say maybe there's a choice there. Maybe there's an artistic choice, an autistic choice, being made there that's got some kind of merit to it, but then I remember what movie I'm talking about. I'm talking about A Mile in His Shoes. Why am I still talking about this movie? I feel like I wasted a recommendation here. But yeah, I wanted this to be a highly insulting, horribly made, so bad it's good type of 1 out of 10, but no, it's just a boring waste of time type of 1 out of 10. Just completely unworth my time, and I am a worse person for having watched it. And that's gonna do it for this episode of the Simecast. We're gonna go ahead and recommend 2 more movies now. First up, the recent recommendation coming in with a new release that's coming out this Friday, The Naked Gun, the new one starring Liam Neeson, the next alphabetical actor up from Leslie Nielsen. I wonder if they did that on purpose, but yeah, this is a sequel, I guess, to the classic Naked Gun movies, and I might revisit those before I go out and see this one. But I have mixed thoughts on the trailers or the marketing material from what I've seen, but I think there is a chance that they might understand the originals and what made them funny. So I'm interested to check this one out, and yeah, it'll be in theaters, so go watch that and report back here next week. And then we have the second recommendation, the real recommendation. This could be anything, but I'm going with a movie from 2007, something that I've heard a lot of good things about, something that might have flown under people's radars. It's called The Man from Earth. I believe this is a TV movie, but apparently the script is really, really good. Something of a conversational slash sci-fi piece. Like there's some sci-fi elements mixed in there. I haven't seen it yet, but it's interesting sounding, and I'm recommending that you watch it. It's on Amazon Prime if you're looking to watch it. And yeah, this was an interesting episode. I'm interested to see people's reaction here. And once again, I've forgotten to do my plugs at the start of the episode, so I'll just do them right here. I have the plugs, the links in the description for you to follow me on Blue Sky for my social media stuff. Then the other link that I have is for my Letterboxd, where you can see me logging my movies, which you might be here more for. So if you're interested, go check me out there on Letterboxd. Simon Cinema, I'm on there as. And thanks for watching. Bye.